just connecting.
It takes that 30-second or 20-second little delay.
It's doing the Zoom Facebook magic. Spinning circle. Okay, the circle spun and then it stopped. Okay, I'm just going to carry on.
Yeah, I think it shows live on Facebook on our window. So
okay, I'm just not seeing it here, but that's all right. Once you guys get going, I'll go back and log into the page. So welcome everyone to, I think, Kim, this is our seventh town hall community forum that we're having as part of Kim's campaign to be the next leader of the BC Green Party. And thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Rita and I am Kim's campaign manager. And sometimes it feels like Kim and I are sharing a brain these days. We talk so much. We start at 7 in the morning till 10 at night sometimes, but it's been a wonderful journey. We've decided to host a series of events on topics that are important to Kim and her campaign. So today we're talking about the circular economy. I'm going to do a bit of an intro on Kim because some people joining us don't know Kim that well or her background. I'll just do a very short intro. And then I will pass it over to Kim to do her introduction on the topic. And we'll let each of our panelists have time to speak. And then we'll open it up to questions and answers from the people that are watching. So some may come in through Facebook and some will also come in through Zoom here. And at the bottom of your screen for everyone who's joining us, there is a Q&A box where you can input your questions and I will monitor those later on once we get going. So again, welcome everyone. Just a bit of background, Kim and I first met Kim in 2014 when we were both rookie members of the BC Greens Provincial Council. And for those of you who don't know what that is, like that's the governance board of the party. And back then, even I was immediately impressed by her enthusiasm for the party and all it stands for, and her determination to use her involvement with the party to create real lasting change for the people in her community and across the province. And as we all know, jumping into politics is not an easy game and it's not something that anyone takes lightly. But Kim stands apart from the other candidates I've worked with, and I've worked on quite a few election campaigns over the years, not the least of which is that she really wants this. She feels drawn to play a leadership role in BC politics with the BC Green Party and does not shy away from the tremendous challenge this presents to both her personal and her professional life. She's been an active and proud member of the BC Green Party for the last 6 years, having served on provincial council as vice chair and secretary. In 2017, Kim ran as the BC MLA candidate in the Powell River Sunshine Coast riding, where her team doubled the party's 2013 vote share. And then she later founded the local riding association. With all her work that Kim does in her community and with her business, she really personifies to me feminine energy. She's tough when she needs to be, but she's compassionate and caring and works in collaboration with others with a razor focus on her priorities. And to me, in uncertain times like those we find ourselves in these days, this is the kind of leadership that our province and the world needs more of. So I didn't hesitate when Kim asked me to be her campaign manager for her bid to be the next leader of the BC Green Party. I'm honored to work with a leadership candidate with such integrity, motivation, passion, and grit. So please welcome my friend, Kim Darwin.
And I'm so grateful to Rita for saying yes when I asked her, and to have such an experienced campaign manager. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. And for those that aren't familiar with the word circular economy, I think I put out, what the heck's a circular economy? So straight from Wikipedia, the definition is a circular economy, which is often referred to simply as circularity, is an economic system aimed at eliminating waste and the continual use of resources. Circular systems employ reusing, sharing, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and recycling to create a closed loop system minimizing the use of resource inputs and the creation of waste, pollution, and carbon emissions. So a circular economic model is really part of an authentic zero waste strategy. And I say authentic because there's an awful lot of greenwashing going on these days. And when you really think about it, this is the way that our grandparents used to live. I remember my granny darning socks with a light bulb in the bottom of the heels, you know, things like that. And I think we probably all remember the words waste not, want not. Now we have an issue in my riding, the Powell River Sunshine Coast riding. Our landfill has 6 years left in it, and I don't think they have a plan for what they're going to do. The other half of my riding, the Upper Sunshine Coast, Powell River there, they barge their garbage to Washington. And I'm pretty sure most communities in British Columbia have a problem with illegal dumping. And we really, you know what, we really have become quite a disposable society. And as we're going to hear momentarily, there are ways to turn our waste streams into climate action fighting jobs. And I'm really excited to talk about the three people that we have on the line here today. But in March of this year, the Emerging Economy Task Force, which was a task force that was put together at the request of the BC Green Party as part of the Confidence and Supply Agreement with the NDP, they presented their final report to the government with recommendations that address the future of BC's economy and to encourage made in BC solutions. So really exciting that in it, leveraging a green and circular economy was cited as one of the top 5 strategic priorities for British Columbia's future economy. I'm kind of a bit of a geek when it comes to finding solutions that have a people, planet, and prosperity model at their core. These are a win-win-win solution for all British Columbians. So many of you may know that in addition to volunteering with the BC Green Party Provincial Council for the last 6 years, I also volunteer on a Community Futures Board. And with our particular Communities Futures Board, we get federal funds to loan to business owners for startups or for expanding their businesses. And with every loan application, we have business owners complete a community impact assessment based on the UN sustainability goals, similar to a shortened version of the B-corp certification process. And if the business scores well, they receive a lower interest rate. So this is to really encourage every business owner to really think about what their impact is, their social impact and their environmental impact. And you know, we always hear about the great green things that European countries are doing, and there's a lot of them, but did you know that there's many business owners in British Columbia who are already making their living using the people, planet, and prosperity models? So, and we're going to meet 3 shortly. And the thing about these people that we're going to be meeting and others in British Columbia is they haven't waited for provincial or Canadian governments to get on board. They're just doing it. And one of my biggest goals as leader of the BC Green Party is to shift what British Columbians think about when they hear the words jobs and economy, and to have the BC Green Party be the leading political party in the economic transition so that we can meet our climate targets, tackle inequality, all the while putting food on the table, essentially to bring the yes to the no. So I am so excited to introduce our panelists, and in no particular order, I'm going to introduce Tim Bedford, who is his other partner in crime is working in the restaurant right now, I'm sure, or working with their toddlers, and that's Stephanie Hines. And they started Ginger Jars. So they identified that more than 30% of food that is created in Canada is destined for the landfill or compost. So what they do at Ginger Jars is they take the bruised and misshapen and perfectly ripe products from the local grocers and turn them into delicious soups and salad dressings that are all homemade. So they're proud to be giving food a second chance at consumption. and avoid having it end up in the landfill or compost. They also, their packaging is designed to be waste-free as possible, consisting of reusable glass jars. And Tim is also a culinary professor at Vancouver Community College, where he implements strategies and knowledge in food waste reduction. And Stephanie manages the bistro, although it sounds like Tim's been roped in there to do some of that as well. And they actually operate ginger jars from the bistro. And we have Chris Arkell on the line here from Sea to Sky Removal. And Sea to Sky Removal grew out of their vision for a better world. So their company was founded on the principle that business can do good, drive change, and ultimately help save the world. They saw a problem, and that was in construction waste, and they decided that they could change it. So their crew meticulously hand separates all recyclables to maximize diversion, as well as separates any reusable items from actual garbage. They live load trucks systematically, and Chris, I'm assuming that means that real live people do it, that it's not mechanical.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. In order to efficiently dispose materials to the correct locations, such as recycling centers and any suitable local nonprofit organization, with the last option being the landfill. They are a certified B Corporation. Their focus is to help drive a global movement of people using business as a force for good. They strive to meet the highest standards of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. And last but not least, we have Felix Boak, founder of Chop Value. So Chop Value identified that 100,000 chopsticks are chucked out every day in the Lower Mainland. So what Chop Value does is they collect up the chopsticks and they create high performance circular economy designs made entirely from recycled chopsticks. And as of July 16th, 2020, 25,786,890 chopsticks were recycled and transformed that would have otherwise ended up in the landfill. That is pretty incredible. So the urban harvested material is transformed through a carbon neutral micro-manufacturing model and reintroduced into society as beautiful and durable engineered products that you can see sitting behind there in the Zoom photo. And as of Chop Value launched its turnkey microfactory franchise concept for expansion on a global scale in January of 2020, with microfactories operating in multiple cities. Chop Value can truly be local wherever their suppliers and customers are for a more efficient process while being a carbon negative company. So welcome to all three of you. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'd like to just give a few minutes for each of you, starting with Chris, on how you got to starting your business. So I'll open it up to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. First off, thank you for having me on here. And the company started 4.5 years ago. And Cincy, my wife, is a co-founder as well. So there's the two of us that started it. And I've pretty much spent most of my adult life in construction, from being a carpenter to having a general contracting company. And the volume of construction waste that I saw and that I dealt with was staggering. And we just decided that we needed to do something about that kind of niche of the market. And Cincy and I started the company. It was just the two of us on the truck, and we went out to construction sites. And just to quickly go back, live loading basically just means that we are hand loading everything on. So one of the things we wanted to do was break away from bins, because bins in the construction world, basically everything gets thrown into them, and it's really hard to be able to separate, reuse, recycle any of that material. So we live load everything, and we have from day one, so that we can separate and sort all the material that we get. What we do with that material, depending on what it is, reuse. If it's reusable or has any life left in it in any capacity, we'll take it to a donation center, be it, depending on the municipality that we're working in. It will be used or donated to like Whistler. Whistler has a center, Squamish has a center, there's multiple in Vancouver, although we'd love to see more. So that's our number one, is to be able to get those items back into the hands of people who will be able to use it. Recycle, we recycle everything that we can out of our loads. And we're currently right now on a diversion rate of around 75 to 80% of our loads are either donated or recycled. Actually, a small amount of construction waste is actually garbage, or as I like to say, garbage, because everyone says garbage, but it's not really that. A lot of wood waste. There's just so much in construction waste that can be reused or has other life at the end of it. So we started our company and we just decided to tackle it head on, and we've grown hugely. We've actually grown quite a lot in the last like 5 or 6 months. We've been very fortunate that throughout everything that's happening with COVID right now, it seems to be, as construction is an essential service, we've just gotten busier. So we've been able to touch more and more construction waste as we can and do the most that we can with it. So yeah, we're just very focused on being able to keep as much of the material out of the landfill and reuse it and recycle it in the orders that make the most sense. And in the way for us that we do that is by touching everything with our hands. There's no easy way around it. It is boots on the ground, hard work. Our crews work extremely hard for us. Every garbage bag we'll go through, open up every bag, pull apart every piece of plastic. So if you can imagine all the packaging that goes into a house in terms of, say, a TV stand. TV stand gets shipped with 10 different packages of bolts and plastic for one application, because they try and make it so that it works with multiple different types of TVs. So our crews will go through, tear them apart, recycle everything. We go through everything. We touch everything that we can, and we do our best to keep as much of it out of the landfill as possible.
That's awesome. Amazing. I'm going to have a couple other sort of fine-tuning questions for you in a little bit, but thanks for that. Felix, so same question. What was your journey to starting Chop Value?
Very similar, and Chris knows that because I'm fangirling sea to sky removal with our team. Like we follow each other quite regularly because we have the same passion of looking at something that others see as waste, and we just simply see as underutilized resource, right? And this is pretty much how it started. When I moved here for my academic career, I knew this is not my path, and I think a visit to the landfill really changed my perspective, because I learned that more than 600,000 tons of wood waste ends up on the landfill, and it's a number that people don't understand. But if you start with something that everyone can relate to, like little chopsticks, I thought maybe that could be that inspiring little change maker that people understand of, oh, wait a minute, this little guy who, considers himself a garbage man, or at least that's what my mom thinks. He actually takes that and understands the value of that bamboo fiber of each chopstick and creates a new high performing material. So yeah, when we started a business 3.5 years ago, similar to Chris, my now fiance, at that time girlfriend, she challenged me saying, Felix, maybe you should start with chopsticks, start with something that everyone can understand, and don't be such a frustrating, bitter German guy who just talks about how much waste we have in this green city, right? And I think it's a luxury problem in BC, right? So we have too much beautiful forest. It's too easy to walk into the forest and take this beautiful saw log and make new products out of it. But if you go and sort through the underutilized resources that we have, it's much more work. I think Chris and we agree on that. And if you are very, very lean and efficient, like we are with Chop Value, we just focus on one resource to develop one brand, and we gave it a name, and that name is Microfactory. And that Microfactory concept, together with that brand that we developed as Chop Value, we want to expand that local thinking all over the world, starting with North America at first, because I think we have the reputation of being fairly wasteful, and there's, it's low-hanging fruit. Being more efficient to us is low-hanging fruit. And, now we employ around 25 people that all can go home to their family and friends and tell them that they are working for a recycling chopstick company. That's my story.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's a great story, and starting with such a little thing. And I think a lot of people, you go out for sushi and you get, it comes with those chopsticks, and you don't really think about it, but hopefully we'll be able to get people to think more, bring their own. I mean, I guess the greatest problem would be to have is that you would run out of chopsticks for your business.
Yeah, you're right, Kim. When people ask us, so what did you do when the restaurant closed, right? Like, did you have supply problems? And I said, supply problems are good problems for us. That means there's less waste. But then you think through it a bit more, and you know that people still eat and they just order more takeout. So we now need to be a bit more creative and innovative how we get the chopsticks from the actual end consumer back home, because the problem is not gone because you don't see it right away.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for that. And Tim, your journey to ginger jars.
Well, so we moved to the Sunshine Coast 4 years ago. That's how I met you, actually. So,
yeah.
and I started cooking 20 years ago, and I spent 5 years cooking in Haida Gwaii. And I was working at a resort, which is probably everybody knows all about the resorts now with everything in the news. But I was working in a resort for 5 years, and it was crazy to me because all of our food waste was literally getting dumped in the ocean. And we were going, holy cow. So by the end of it, I knew there was this huge problem. I had worked in a resort in Haida Gwaii. I'd worked in hotels, I'd worked in restaurants, and I'd never really kind of figured out what to do about it. And, I just going through cooking in general, it is seemingly a very wasteful, especially in the past, a very wasteful journey because everything had to be perfect, right? And so I got to the Sunshine Coast. I heard about the landfill, which you mentioned earlier to all of us, that the landfill on the Sunshine Coast has 6 years left now. I heard about this 3 years ago. And then I heard that probably the largest grocery store on the coast had just lost their contract with a local recycling center to take all of their food waste for them because the recycling center had been sold. So long story short, I got a meeting with the owner of the grocery store, and we talked about what we could do to work together to start taking all of their produce waste. We haven't really even touched on a lot of other things like meat or fish waste or even bread, stuff like that, because it becomes a lot more complicated from a food safety standpoint when you do. But we take and have taken now for about 3 years, about 1,000 pounds a week of their produce just from the one store. We did about 6 months of food testing. So I just kind of every weekend or every time I had a free day, I would go and pick up a call from the grocery store, and I would account everything that we got. And then I would come up with recipes based around the things that we consistently received. Did all the food testing, had to send a bunch of stuff in for shelf life testing, went through all the environmental safety stuff that you have to with reusing product with our local health authority. And then the big thing that came up at the end was, well, how are we going to package it? So I looked at the reusable milk bottles were the model that we used. Mm-hmm. So, you go buy your milk, you return the milk bottle, you get your $1 or $2 back. We went along a very similar model. We use recycled paper tags that get attached to our jars, our glass jars, via a rubber band. And it has to be actual rubber because rubber is actually quite sustainable. And then our lids are aluminum, which prior to now with our aluminum shortage, is actually considered one of the most sustainable metals to use and most recyclable metals. So in our packaging, the only thing that really gets wasted is the tag. And even at that, it's a recycled paper, so it's not that hard to get recycled. Our jars come back to us with the deposit. And then it's a little bit of a closed loop, which we liked. And that was the whole point, because there's a lot of people who talk about these things and talk about what they want to do, but then you have, plastic bags, packaging, and, like they were talking about with packaging previously, like all of these things can contribute in a way that No matter how hard you're trying, the more you go down that rabbit hole, if you don't close your loop, you're really just increasing the problem, not actually working on the solution. So.
Yeah, that's great. You know, there are thousands of circular economy models, like thousands of businesses, and I'm just really thrilled that you guys can share your three. I did prepare just a series of questions that I'm curious about, and hopefully our attendees will be gathering some as well. But I'm curious as to, and I'll address this at Tim first, seeing as how you've just been talking. What government programs or incentives could have or can make your business more successful in meeting your goals? And I just throwing out an idea, you know, tax reductions, like rewarding good behavior instead of, you know, punishing for bad behavior, just
Well,
as an idea.
yeah, well, one thing we've actually been talking about for a long time now that's a big hindrance for us. I mean, we have a small restaurant, and our restaurant, because of that, it's made production for us affordable because we have a commercial kitchen at our disposal. But it's a small restaurant, so there's only so much storage, there's only so much kitchen space. I think the biggest thing that is missing is a space that is usable for local food producers, artisans, that could be actually commercially driven. So, you know, whether it means that there's grants or loans given by the government to create in small communities, like a food production hub or a food hub in general, where, you know, things like food security could be addressed. So, you know, making product for us or for other artisans, and then storing it. And then when a natural disaster hits, you have enough food on a place like the Sunshine Coast that right now I think they say has enough food for 3 days. Yeah. So it's you know, there's lots of concern in my mind that hasn't been considered. And I think if the government looked at, especially with the small communities, really kind of funding making an economy and making a food economy that's based more locally and not so much on import and not so much on daily deliveries, I think that would be huge.
You're stealing my thunder for next week. We're doing a whole session with a guest speaker about food security next week, so hopefully you can tune in for that one on next Thursday. Chris, I'll ask the same question of you. What government programs or incentives could have or can make your business more successful in meeting your goals?
It's a big question because there's lots of them.
All right.
This
is your platform.
Yeah. I think for us, we would love to see tax incentives for sure for companies that are able to prove themselves, like the 3 companies that are here, able to prove themselves that they are contributing to a better planet, a circular economy, creating jobs, and really having that incentive for us as small business owners, because it is really hard as small business owners to negotiate and navigate through all the taxes and everything like that. A lot of the times with doing what we're doing, because you're doing it the right way, you are incurring more costs. It's just the way that it goes. We'd love to see those costs reduced or have some of the government incentive, be it with taxes. It could even be with employment and with helping companies like ours with labor. In terms of a subsidy for wage, maybe carried out not just through these COVID times, but in perpetuity for companies like us and like ours that are doing good for the planet and doing good for the economy, and really looking at ways of, exactly like you said, the situation in the Sunshine Coast about the landfill is not, it's everywhere. Like Squamish was dealing with it. Powell River is luckily enough going to be having a resource recovery center, but their landfill also is being barged away. So companies like ours throughout the province that are able to most definitely help in job creation, and there's so many opportunities here in this circular green economy. It's the way forward. So we'd love to see the government be able to nurture that and help companies like ours and like everyone on the panel to be able to move forward. And then it would go into, I'm a bit of the carrot and the stick. I also like the stick. I'd love to see bylaws imposed and a little bit more harsher reality for the people who are doing things in the most profit-driven, less environmentally friendly way. I would love to see bylaws mandating you have to do it this way, and here's your time period that this is going to happen. And that's another way the government could really help in driving our businesses, and I know Felix's business and Tim's business, into having a leg up and kind of moving into that area where we can then now compete with the larger of the companies. And a lot of those larger companies don't like doing things the right way, or the way that it is for the best for the planet, or the best for society, because it's not in their best interest. It's not the bottom line, and we really have to move away from bottom line thinking. It's gotten us to where we are now, and if we continue on that run, it's just going to get worse and worse. So I'd love to see help in that way, for sure.
Yeah, so just to add to that, I mean, we are already seeing the cost of climate inaction, and the municipalities are the ones that are really bearing the brunt of that. So if there's a cost to inaction, then definitely there should be a reward for the companies that are taking it upon themselves to be a solution. Another thing, just to add some context before Felix adds his piece into the same question, is in British Columbia, 54% of all of the businesses in British Columbia are small, and that means businesses that have between 0 and 10 employees, and they seem to be really kind of on their own. There really isn't any organization that's really truly looking out for the interests of small business owners. So Felix, the same question to you.
I'm actually not sure if I'm educated enough to answer the question, but I have ideas, like practical ideas.
Yeah.
Because where I see you, for example, come in as new leader of the Green Party, is educating, like playing a huge role in educating what carbon footprint actually means. So I feel like carbon, like especially when someone mentions carbon taxes, seems to be something so, scary and untouchable, and it's not a unit we actually understand yet. So I always try to keep it very simple. So imagine we have a landfill like yours that is overflowing in 6 years. And you imagine yourself there coming carbon emissions out of this landfill day by day by day by day. And you incentivize businesses like ours that actually keep these emissions in second life products, or increasing the lifespan of how we store that carbon instead of releasing it to the atmosphere. Imagine you would run a campaign with the government that supports that thinking and then puts a value on carbon. I don't want to call it carbon taxing, I just call it a carbon pricing as a new unit. And every product that gets produced locally and maybe uses underutilized resources or local resources that has much less transportation, much less impact on logistics, and a very, very small carbon footprint, has an incentive price that is somehow discounted by the government. I think that would truly make every local business, and not only BC, right, in other provinces and states as well, that would make local businesses more cost efficient. So this is kind of the vision where I see us as thought leaders of small businesses, the 54%, actually play a huge role in helping the government to translate that, to make it understandable. That's at least the idea that I had when you prepared us with these questions on what we think we can do.
Yeah, that's great. There is just a little story. My son's getting married on Saturday, and I wanted to walk my talk and have an eco-friendly dress. Fabric is so egregious with its carbon footprint, and I did find a company that does actually give the carbon footprint of every article of clothing. They are carbon neutral as well. Really great how their transparency on their website, and it's the Reformation. They have stores in the States and in Canada, but it was really great. So they actually have kind of started what you've just described with every product, so you can see what the carbon footprint is of each article of clothing. The other thing, I had a great conversation with some of the people from B Labs, and we were talking about one of the ways of encouraging more businesses to, become B Corp certified was if all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, changed their procurement policies to ever increasing, say that they're going to take a certain percentage of B Corp certified companies with their procurement policies, and year over year increase that percent as more and more get on board. And then I'm sure you already know about the Climate Smart organization, where small business owners can basically figure out what their carbon footprint is. So they have a model set up already. So perhaps again, the government could incentivize businesses to go through that climate smart modeling to figure out where they're at, because business owners are usually pretty busy, and trying to figure that out on their own is probably a little bit more difficult. And even one simple thing that businesses can find out if they use computers, that PCs take way more energy than laptops. So as their PCs start to fail, replace them with laptops. That's energy saving. So just real simple things like that we can empower businesses to do. So yeah, lots and lots of solutions. We just need to get them out there. Yeah. So I had a couple other questions here before we open it up to the floor, although I don't want to hog the floor, because I really, I get so excited about these kinds of solutions. And I'll ask maybe Tim, we'll go back to Tim. What has been the largest hurdle that you've had to overcome with your business?
Well, so food, especially food production for retail sale, it has a lot of red tape when it comes to food safety. And so, for instance, if I make a product and I sell it in my restaurant versus I make a product and I sell it in a local grocery store, there's about 7 or 8 things extra that I have to do to sell it in the grocery store. So I have to have French and English labels. I have to have my full ingredient list. I have to have my full nutritional label. I have to have a certain amount of product testing done on the product. And all of that is to more or less appease insurance. And whereas if I make the product in the restaurant and then I sell it in the restaurant, it falls under our own insurance in the restaurant. That is actually the biggest hurdle, is just the amount of red tape that there is around what we do, especially because we're using a combination of new and reclaimed product, where there's concern around the idea that some of it might have already hit a stage of fermentation that might include mold or might include things that would make people ill. We've been through a pretty rigorous process where we've had 3 full days of our health inspector actually watching us make product and cull product ourselves and pick through it and what we do with it. So if that was lessened, I think that would be huge. I mean, that's about $10,000 a year that we spend just on testing.
Wow, that's incredible. I think I have purchased many of your soups. They are delicious, and it's not something that I would even have thought about. So, Chris, you also mentioned plastics, including the hard to recycle plastics or the single use items ending up in the landfill. Can you elaborate on that? And I think the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, we haven't mentioned Ellen MacArthur, but she is she has so many great articles and an entire foundation about the circular economy. So perhaps you can elaborate on that.
You bet. So what I'd say, tying that into the hurdle, one of our biggest hurdles would be a lack of infrastructure and the ability recycle and to reuse a lot of our hard to recycle plastics in construction. So there's the basics, which there are a lot of programs for, like films and the packaging that is like standard packaging. There's a lot of hard to recycle plastics such as EPS foam, that is also used in a lot of packaging. Just the types of plastics that you can't just take and recycle. We would love to see a larger investment in infrastructure, so these plastics don't have to end up going to waste to energy, because we don't really feel like that's a solution either. It's the lesser of the evils potentially, but it's not something that we would like to see. So if we were able to keep infrastructure in BC in-house, be able to create jobs, be able to have products that are made from the plastics, which are hard to recycle, that then are able to be turned into like modular building pieces. So thinking end of life for buildings as well. If these pieces can be used in a building, and then in 50 or 100 years or 150 years, when they end up coming down, they're able to be just taken out and reused into another application, stopping the need to produce these hard to recycle plastics. That is something that we would love to see, and see the government get behind, that instead of also sending our plastics away to, other countries, and all the just the energy used just to ship them across the ocean, keep that all in-house, and let's find ways that we're able to convert old mills that are not being used anymore. We have the ability to do it here. We just need to have the backing and the ability to do it. Job creation's huge. There's a lot that can be done, and then getting back into the circular economy and the Ellen MacArthur, and there's a lot of materials that are produced that can just straight away go back into being reused in one form or another. It doesn't have to get thrown away, and a lot of them don't even have to be recycled. Even having more donation centers where communities are able to just pick through material and reuse them on their houses. It's kind of a real lack of infrastructure across the board in a lot of areas, because we're so used to just sending it away or giving it, it's out of sight, out of mind. We have a massive opportunity here to not only lead our province, but lead our country and lead North America in job creation, the ability to get our carbon footprint way down and be a model for other countries to then come to us and say, or other areas come to us and say, how did you do it? Okay, now we're consulting with them and we're exporting our knowledge, and it's another revenue stream. There's so many ways to do it that I just would love to see it kind of progress from there. I think we're at the forefront of it, and it's weird to say we're at the forefront because it should have been done 20 years ago, but we are at the cutting edge of things here in terms of, if you look on a global scale. So let's get further out in front of it, and let's put the energy and the money into being able to keep everything in-house and reduce everything that we're dealing with waste-wise.
Yeah, $6.5 billion invested into something like this would go a long ways, right? Instead of into a defunct or dying industry like the fracking industry. So yeah,
no kidding.
I love your passion. That's exactly what I think we need to do, for sure. Nice. Felix, what has been the largest hurdle that you've had to overcome with your business?
Well, I was just gonna say, I also love the energy that Chris brings. I'm just like, I can't sit still, because I know. I'm like, what can I do? Can I go out collecting now? Because the biggest hurdle for us is really, if you hear every single day someone telling you no, this doesn't work, this shouldn't work, that you continue with a yes. Because I give you a very, very easy example on how municipalities or politics come into the way, which kind of threw me off on not even investing time into building these relationships. Is I found around 600 old garbage bins in a warehouse 3 years ago, and I approached the city and said, can we reuse them? Like, we would just put our stickers on it and we use them as chopstick bins. And they said, no, we sorted them out, they will get thrown out because we rebranded, and you can't use them because you're for profit. We would give them to you if you're non-for-profit or a charity, but we can't give anyone advantage over someone else because you're for profit, even though you're doing good. I think that's just a very, very old traditional mindset, because we are taking the risk as business owners of making new things work. utilizing food residues, going out and collecting materials and try to create value out of this, providing a service, or us developing a new concept that can be scaled, coming out of Vancouver, coming out of BC, globally. Like, this is something politics has to stand 100% behind and proudly say, yes, this is for profit and this is why it works. This is for me the biggest disconnect. And I think the second, on a bigger scale, because I'm coming from the research, I am not a fan of politics giving any, like, millions of dollars of grants and funding to non-for-profit research institutes if these institutes have not a commitment to work with a for-profit industry partner to actually implement it sustainably. This is a moral issue I have, which is one of the major reasons why I did not continue in my academic path, because we cannot pump so much money that could be, creating so many other things for small businesses. We cannot pump this further into these big institutes without the same results.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I've hogged up all the questions. Let's open the floor, Rita, if we have some questions here as well.
I have to tell you guys how inspired I am. This is a fabulous discussion.
So exciting.
Thanks again. So we do have one question that came in on the Q&A from Dave. He says, congratulations to the 3 guests for their innovative approaches to their businesses. I'm curious if, as you each pursued a circular model for your business, have you observed any other industries or businesses where you see an opportunity for circular model to be implemented? What and where are they? So maybe larger businesses, some companies that have a huge impact, a huge footprint, what could they be doing?
I'll take that one.
All right.
Yeah, the construction industry definitely has the ability to be reinventing themselves in a circular way with modular buildings, with being able to build in blocks that can then not go to the landfill once the end of life, be able to be reused in other areas. The deconstruction, being able to deconstruct with way less energy, way less need for diesel for excavators, which we shouldn't even be using excavators. We should be using companies like Unbuilders that actually take these buildings apart. But I think there's a huge there's so many opportunities, especially in the construction industry. There's a lot that can be done with modular building, and then forward thinking to being able to use those pieces that are being made, use them in 150 years, use them in 50 years. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in construction industry for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So there's a question that came in on Facebook, which I shall read out. Let me just bring it over here, so I'm looking in the right direction. Silverado. Hi, Silverado. I haven't talked to you for a long time. We're all also old buddies from Provincial Council. How about food? Farmland is being removed from the ALR land. Site C, farmland loss. These are different yet on the same page. I will never forget the response I hear from a politician in response to land loss for highways. We get food from China. So it's a general sort of a little mini rant there on food waste and the loss of farmland in British Columbia. Anyone want to take that on?
Well, I'll just say, Silverado, you might not have been on earlier, but next week we're going to have another session like this one all about food security with a guest speaker, Guy Dauncey. So we will definitely be talking about food security as also another job creation strategy. And of course, we can't talk about food security without talking about the flooding of the area with Site C Dam. So more to come on that.
Yes, tune in next Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Correct.
Guy
Yeah.
Dauncey.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Can I jump in quickly about farming?
Yeah.
So our restaurant, our rule in our restaurant is that we buy as much as we can locally. So right now, for instance, we are buying about 97% of our produce from the Sunshine Coast, from farms on the coast. And I would say that COVID has brought upon a difficult time for farmers, but to be honest, it's always been a difficult time for farmers. And Again, there's so little incentivization to actually farm locally from a government level. Like, you know, when it's a lot of work, like it's like all of us that are talking right now, we're all in industries where there's a lot of like hands-on work that has to be put into what's being done. And maybe incentivizing help for farmers, meaning like literally just more hands, more people, more staff, employment, to a larger scale would make a lot of sense to me. It's kind of sad that 2 of the 4 farms that we used last summer at our restaurant are actually, one is for sale and one has gone under this year. So, you know, and that's pretty consistent up here. And I think it's pretty consistent everywhere in BC, that, you know, these small scale farms just become either too difficult or too expensive to run. So.
Yeah, not only that, the average age of farmers is about 65 years old. So again, we'll talk about that next week, about the cost of land and the way to work around that to get younger people to be able to make a living farming. But yeah, huge part of the conversation.
Absolutely. So Megan has a question. She said, I just joined, so I don't know who your guests are, but I like the comment that was just made about governments not putting money into academic research institutes without that research being connected or partnered with private businesses. I can see that B corporations would have the perfect partner, would be a perfect partner in that way. Can you say more about that partnership? I know who wants to take that on. Felix, do you want to continue on that vein, since you're the one that made the comment?
I'm happy to continue back up that comment, just because I'm coming from the world, right? So maybe it's also based on a historic experience, not only from all my colleagues, but also my my research experience coming from Germany. There's not a single project that we work on in universities that is not connected to implementation and very strong governance on how the outcome actually impacts economic benefit. That's Germany. So when I moved here to do my PhD at UBC, 3 months in my PhD, I started my first business, because I could not believe that there's no connection to industry. And I could not believe that the only outcome of my research would be publications and a book. I understand it's very important to have that academic freedom and have that, you know, no pressure of business to create innovation, but not in the construction industry, not in the circular economy. Not like, those are all existing technologies out there that just need to be adapted to our local resources and our local infrastructure and our local problems that we have to deal with here. So again, like, I want to be very clear from an engineering perspective, all the solutions are in front of us. There's another question here in the Q&A session, you know, non-related to Chris, Tim, or me. Can we rethink these concepts to all other materials? Yes, we can. It's just really complex to do so. And we need to make sure that we go one step back in the process. When we talk about fabrics, you know, Kim, you know that fabrics is the toughest one, because there's such a huge mix of different manufacturing methods, chemicals, and different ways of doing fabric, because no one at the creation of it thinks of the afterlife. So we have to tackle that problem much earlier than at the recycling stage, where we put it back to fiber, because the process energy needed and the chemicals needed to get it back to a fiber, that is the real issue. But yeah.
I had done a great deal of research on fabric awareness. I had chosen 5 different types of fabric, researched the source, how they were made from the raw material into textiles, the biodegradability, and the fact of the matter is the mixed fabrics cannot be recycled. And most people are becoming aware that anything polyester or nylon is essentially made from the fossil fuel industry. You're essentially wearing a plastic bag. I believe it is in the top 3 for greenhouse gas emissions and waste. It's absolutely egregious. So I actually used a freezer box, and I got pieces of fabric and put all of the information there, and I trucked it around to all sorts of farmers markets and sessions, and I had on it, what are you wearing? And people would, everybody be looking at their tags to see what they're wearing. It's about bringing awareness so that people can make informed choices.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Bart, I think we addressed the clothing recycling one. So I'm going to move on to Selena's question. So Kim, she says, I think I read in one of our emails that you use the term people, planet before profit. 2 questions. Should we say prosperity rather than profit? And aren't people, planet, and prosperity all equally important because they are all connected?
Yes, so I think the United Nations has started, it used to be people, planet, profit that people would say, and I believe the United Nations has started using the terms people, planet, and prosperity. And you're right, they all are important. And I think we have to get away from this notion that money and profiting is evil. It's the poor distribution of prosperity that is the issue. And over the next 30 years, it is slated that there will be $50 trillion that is going to change hands as the older generation passes its wealth to the younger generation. If the younger generation that has been cited, I think in a 2014 and other studies since, these things are important to them. Making sure that what they're purchasing has more meaning, it actually has more benefits to the environment and a social impact. Of course, we can't wait for the younger generation to start spending that money wisely. We need to start now, but again, profits, prosperity, it's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of what we spend it on and how it's distributed.
I'd like to add to that. I think that the real change that's going to happen is not going to come from government. The real change that's going to happen is going to come from businesses, is going to come from the for-profit sector, because the only way that we're going to be able to make things happen is if companies like all of ours here, and companies that have to be profitable to stay alive. We're not for profits. The more that we get businesses that have these ethics and businesses that have these values that are able to turn a profit, but it's good profit in terms of what is happening to the planet and what's happening to the people that they employ and what's happening to the communities that they're in, not only small but large if it's on a larger scale. I think that's where we need to really focus on the profit side of it. And if we have all these not-for-profits, I think it's great, but real change is going to come from people making a profit and having businesses that are prosperous, that can continue on and move their values forward generation to generation.
Hear, hear. Yeah.
Which is why we're a B-corp. Because it's a big deal, and it really has an effect on everything that you do and everything around you, and it's something that we're very proud of.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, we can't be asking people to do things without being able to put food on the table, and that's the yes to the no that we can bring forward.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So another question, we've got just a couple minutes left here to round off our hour. An anonymous attendee is saying, first off, thank you to the panelists. Question is, you've all found niches to tackle sustainability and waste. Given your expertise and knowledge of sustainability in the current situation, what area stands out to you as having the biggest need for improvement and intervention?
Tim, I think that's you.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't want to be a jerk and jump in, but yeah, I think it's food, 100%. And I think that the closing of borders and COVID has really proven that, like times a million. I think come the winter, there's going to be a very, very, very hard reality of how much food we import. It's a pretty easy time to be in BC and Canada right now because we can create a lot of our own local food, but there's a different time of year coming, and I really think that there needs to be some big thought put into the idea of local food in all communities and in cities, and I also think there needs to be, which I'm sure Kim will talk about a lot next week, the combination of that with food security and what do we do if all of a sudden there's a second pandemic in 10 years, and borders close again, and we've just gotten out of this one, you know, there's been a huge move for globalization of the food chain, and I think that is starting to prove failed pretty fast here. So yeah, that would be it for me.
Yeah, I think food waste is, I believe, moved up as the #1 emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, it's
there's an interesting so the online, if you look up the food recovery hierarchy, I actually looked it up beforehand because it was the first thing that I looked up when I got into food waste recovery. Source reduction is #1. So the best thing you can do is source reduction. So farms, grocery stores not wasting so much. Secondly is feeding the hungry with the waste or with the things that would be wasted. Next would be feeding animals, and then industrial uses. So turning it into other products that could be turned into textiles or whatever else. A lot of people, I think the big thing that people think is like, oh, I compost, so I'm doing so well. Composting is the second to last thing on that hierarchy because of the emission of greenhouse gas and because of the fact that you're actually not taking that product and making something out of it. So I think there's been a little bit of false education on food waste and actually what your food waste in your home and what in the stores it's actually doing. And everybody thinks, well, I compost, so I'm doing the best I can. But that's not necessarily always the case.
Yeah, awesome.
This is certainly a big topic, isn't it? We could go on for hours. Maybe we'll sneak in one last question from Trent.
Sure.
How can folks with circular economy business ideas find mentorship and test their ideas? Was there anything that was helpful for you guys?
So I always struggle with a general thought around mentorship, because if you like you can approach circular economy in two ways. One is the very pragmatic, resource efficient way. That's what Chris, Tim, and I are doing, and then after you have thought through the resource efficient process, you probably come up with your own innovation, your own idea that likely no one has done before, or someone is doing similar, and you can just really connect with them in a collaborative way and say, we are all in this for the greater good. We're not competing, and let's learn from each other to accelerate our impact. That's probably how we approach it. I don't think there's another general recipe for mentorship.
And I would add to that I think with B Labs and the B Corp certified organizations, you probably find some people who could lend you some advice as well through that organization.
I think you'll also generally find that people in our position who are doing what we're doing are very collaborative, and we need allies. We don't need to be up against anyone else. We've got enough on our plate that way. We love allies, and we love people who want to fight the fight, and we'll give you all our knowledge. I know for me personally, we'll help you out in any way we can.
Yeah, and I've found that with talking to many of the groups. Like I said, I was on a call with about 35 different B Corp certified companies and B Labs, the people working in B Labs, and the collaboration is amazing. And it's because you're doing it for the right reasons. The people, planet, and prosperity model. You're doing it for the right reasons. So you don't have to hoard the knowledge. Yeah. Well, I want to thank all of you again, and for the attendees for being with us this evening. Next week, we are going to have our whole session similar to this about food security with Guy Dauncey is going to be our guest speaker. So that is Thursday, August 13th. And of course, I have to do my ask here. If you'd like to volunteer, we are always looking for people that want to volunteer on our team, whether you've got an hour a week or several hours a week. We're a fun group. It's so exciting for what we can bring forward to British Columbia. And of course, I have to always ask campaigns, money. We talked about money. Campaigns need money. So if you are able to donate to my campaign, go to kimdarwin.ca and press the donate link, and I will be grateful. Yeah, so thank you again, everyone.
It's amazing, you guys.
Amazing, inspiring, hopeful. Yeah, thank you so much.
We need a conference once we can all get in the same room together again. Let's all get together and yeah, really hash this out, inspire more people to do what you're doing. So
Yes.
important.
Thanks
you.
again. Have a good night, everyone. Okay,
Thanks,
take
guys.
good care. Okay,
Bye.
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 Thank you to everyone watching too.
Yes.
Bye-bye.